Good evening, everyone.
Good evening, Councilor Valdez.
Good evening, Councilor Valdez.
Good evening, Councilor Valdez.
Actually, I'm not sure that that's the case. We're not making
you change your name?
All right, very good. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us tonight. It is now 6:06 p.m., Tuesday, May 18th, 2021. Welcome to City Council Chambers. We are about to begin, and this meeting is now in order. Please take roll and determine a quorum.
Mayor Pro Tem Dennis Tim Salazar,
Good evening, I'm present.
Counselor Peggy Sue Martinez, Counselor Justin Salazar Torres, Counselor John Ramon Vihil,
Present.
Counselor Manuel J. Martinez, Counselor John L. Ritchie,
Present.
Counselor Denise D. Benavides,
Present.
Counselor Dorothy D. D. Valdez,
Present.
I hear something. Is that her?
Present. Dorothy.
Counselor Dorothy D. D. Valdez,
Present. Can you hear me? I'm here.
Councilor Valdez,
Present.
can you give us a mic check, please?
Can you hear me?
We can't hear you.
I can hear you on my end.
Oh, okay. I'm unmuted. I don't know what the
Counselor
problem
Peggy
is.
Sue Martinez, Mayor Javier E. Sanchez,
Present. All right, we seem to be having a few audio difficulties. We're waiting on Councilor Peggy Sue Martinez to join us shortly. And Councilor Didi Valdez, if you can still continue to give us a mic check.
Testing. 1, 2, 3. Testing. Jeff can see me.
We
I
still
see the
can't hear
thumbs up.
you.
Counselor Peggy Sue Martinez, I'm showing that you're muted.
I'm present if you're taking roll call. Thank you.
You did. Aha. Okay, so Councilor Valdez, I understand that others can hear you. We just can't hear you inside of chambers. So we're going to work on that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so that must mean that our mic inside here is not working, or our speakers. We have Ishmael Jr. working on it. Oh my gosh, I need glasses. Let's see. Councilor Manny Martinez is nope, let's see. Ms. Ortiz, you're out there. Can you give me a mic check if you could?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you. We'll go back to Councilor Didi Valdez. Can you give me another mic check? Let's see how that goes.
Testing, 1, 2.
Perfect. We got you. All right. Thank you very much for taking care of that, sir. Appreciate it.
Counselor Peggy Sue Martinez, can you hear us? Or can you give us a mic check, shall I say?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we
Thank
can
you.
hear you. Thank you, Councilor Peggy Sue Martinez.
We have a quorum.
All right. Excellent. Well, thank you very much. Do I hear a motion for approval of the agenda?
So moved.
We have a motion from Councilor Peggy Sue Martinez and a second from Councilor Denise Benavides. Can we take a roll call vote?
Counselor Peggy Sue Martinez,
Honored to be with you all.
Counselor John L. Ritchie,
Are we voting? or are we-
Voting on the agenda.
That's fine. Okay.
Mhm.
In favor?
Counselor John Ramon Vihil,
For the motion.
Counselor Denise D. Benavides,
In favor.
Counselor Dorothy D. Valdez.
For the motion.
Motion carries.
Excellent. So now we'll go on to the discussion item at hand, which is the interim budget work session and is for discussion purposes only. And we will be directed by Administrative Services Director, Ms. Jessica Ortiz, as well as Finance Chair, Councilor Denise Benavides. So I'll go ahead and hand this right over to you, Ms. Ortiz, if you could.
Yes, good evening, Honorable Mayor and members of the governing body. We are here tonight to discuss the FY22 upcoming budget. What we have done is we started back in March preparing the budget. City manager, myself, Ursula, and the mayor started off with an initial discussion. Thereafter, Javier and I and Ursula met, kind of formulated what our plan forward was. At that point, we had another meeting with Mayor and Chair Benavides. And then after that, we've met with all the directors. And so we've formulated a plan, a proposal that we have before you tonight. City Manager Javier, do you want to add anything to that?
Thank you, Ms. Ortiz. Honorable Mayor, members of the governing body. So just to echo on what Ms. Ortiz stated, so we did start mid to late March in discussions to proceed on the FY22 talks. Mayor Sanchez, Councilor Denise Benavides, myself, and the Finance Department have been working together to kind of formulate in a path forward to see where we can move the city forward from last year's pandemic and last year's request of all directors. And I want to thank all directors, departments for sacrificing last year to make the FY21 budget a success. I guess, in moving forward. So this year we've recalculated, revamped, and met within each department head to see what their vision, their goals for their department and their budget was moving forward into FY22. Also met with Mayor and, like I said, Councilor and Chair Denise Benavides as well to formulate a plan and get everybody's input to see where we can move from there. So before you is what we've come up with. Like I said, this is a draft agenda to look for to see if we can submit this as is, or if we need to tune it a little bit more so we can present this for next week's May 25th full council for approval as the interim budget. I just want to very clearly state that this is for the interim budget to be submitted by June 1st. But because of the holiday of Memorial Day falling the day before, we would like to be a little bit proactive and have this packet completed with the interim budget submitted to DFA by May 28th, which is 2 weeks, a week and a half from now. So with that, I will yield the floor back to Ms. Ortiz.
Thank you. So Angelica, can I share my screen?
You should be able to.
Okay. Can everyone see my screen?
No.
Yes, we can now.
Okay. So this is the packet material that I provided to you. However, I just I'm gonna take control of the screen and kind of walk you through what we have proposed. So starting with our general fund, looking at our revenues, we have been seeing a trend in our gross receipt taxes from this time last year. So an average of about 4 to 5%. So looking at our local taxes, what I've done is our franchise taxes, I have based that on our FY21 budget. So that has remained a flat budget. As you can see, these numbers highlighted here are the same as these here. As for our municipal gross receipts tax, what I did was I took our total year-to-date actuals and divided that by our time elapsed of 0.83, which gives me a year-end projected amount of $3.4 million. So with that, and just keep in mind from last year, we were very conservative. We did take a 1% cut on our gross receipts taxes based on actuals. So, just looking at our trend, it has been trending positive. And therefore, the reason for our projections. So based on that, we have, for our gross receipts tax, we have based the amount on the projected year-end actuals. So you can see these amounts here for a total of $4,065,000, which has gone up by $210,884 from last year's budget. Our state shared taxes, so as far as our property taxes for Rio Arriba and Santa Fe, that was based on a flat budget as well. Gross receipt taxes, these right here, again, were based on our projected actuals. Our motor vehicle tax was based on FY21 flat budget. So a total increase, as you can see, mainly in our GRT is $216,000. Licenses and permits have remained flat. It'll be interesting to see now that everything is opening up, how that is going to actually affect us. Same for charges with services. We have seen, some of them increase. And so based on that, flat budgets for these activities here. And then for our rentals, based on projected year end, which we've seen some rentals, happening now. Our Nmfa meals, that's flat, that's based on a contract, so that's $15,000. Our crisis center, we were able to renegotiate. So the contract actually stated $1,000 per month. They had been paying $500, so that will add an additional $6,000. The Atlas gym, we won't have any revenue. I think we're still in the in the discussion of what Gino is going to do with that facility. There has been talks, PD has been interested, but Gino, he hasn't given us a definite answer. Fines and forfeits are based on FY21 budget as well. So you'll see 122,467. And then in our various miscellaneous, these are based on FY21 budgets. Investment income I did lower because we have seen a decrease in the interest rates and the amount of return that we receive. Rentals of buildings, flat budget. Our senior center is based on FY21, although you can see as of April that they had already collected 31,000 with a couple more months to go. So they've been doing very well. And then I added back in the increase for leagues because we will, hopefully soon the sportsplex will start opening up and we'll have the leagues, volleyball leagues, basketball leagues, and the softball leagues generating revenue. And then our transfers from our other funds have remained flat. We have taken out prior year cash. We'll see the difference below when we get to the bottom. So looking at that, we're looking at a total projected revenue of $11,072,546, which is a decrease of $278,258. Keep in mind, this isn't including the prior year cash. Looking at our expenditures, we have proposed a 3% COLA for all staff, except for down below, you'll see that there is proposed salary increases for some individuals. So in these individual name here, they are not factored in with a 3% COLA. We also have gone in and unfroze some of the positions that we froze last year. So if you look here in this box, we did unfreeze the court clerk. We proposed transferring that to the fire department. The paralegal, we unfroze and we transferred that to professional services to cover city attorney costs, claims, judgments, settlements, that sort of stuff. The community service admin, we also unfroze. The clerk receptionist and the lifeguard remain frozen. The code enforcement building official is unfroze. I'm sorry for the typo there. It's not a transfer to fire, so that will need to be updated there. The street service worker, the GSD service worker also unfroze. And then the PSA, which was the public safety aid in police, we unfroze that and we proposed transferring that to fire. So if we go back up to the expenditures, you'll see governing body remains flat. Municipal court.
Ms. Ortiz, please forgive the interruption. We have a question from Councilor John Ritchie.
Sure.
Thank you. What's the salary of the judge? Did we make any adjustments to that?
No, we haven't made any adjustments to that salary. That's would have to continue, of course, until the next election.
Oh, so we can't before?
Not at this time. I'm sorry,
Okay.
Councilor. You said no. Thank you very much.
Right.
Councilor.
All right, thank you.
But that doesn't mean that we couldn't change it at some point and then make that budget change appropriately.
Okay.
Okay, continuing on. So in the municipal court department, we have included a 3% COLA, so you will see the increase of 6.6K. We also have proposed moving the part-time custodian from courts to general services, so they, so they can be managed under that department along with the other 2 custodians that we have. So the total effect on the court's budget is minus $5,983. In the city attorney budget, we no longer have an FTE, so that is now covered under professional services. And so what we did with the paralegal was, it was about 69K. We divided that in 2 and added it to the budget of professional services and claims, judgments, and settlements. You can see our budget here is 90,000. As of April, we have spent 182,000. So that's, something to think of, just the amount of claims that we have coming through. So total increase 69K, that represents the amount of the paralegal. And community services, we have proposed a 3% COLA and unfroze the admin position. So that's an increase of 59,323. The recreational youth department, that's the YMCA Teen Center. That is 60,000 per year per the contract. In the city manager department, this accounts for the proposed salary increase. This is not part of the 3% COLA. We've also proposed to move the E911 JPA to the ARP funding in the amount of 92,000. And we've also included 30K for the pathway shelters. So a total difference of 50,585. Again, proposing to move the JPA to the ARP. In the city clerk department, this accounts for a 3% COLA, as well as 30K for the FY22 municipal election. So a total increase to the department of 30,896. In the recreation department, we have accounted for a 3% COLA, and we have also increased the minimum wage to $12. It will be going up to $11.50 But we wanted to be, proactive and more attractive to, recruiting and stuff like that. So we have proposed a minimum wage of $12 for incoming staff. So that's a increase of $21,671. The senior center accounts for a 3% COLA, and they've also requested an increase in food supplies and non-food supplies. So you'll see a total increase of about $10,764. So total increase to the senior center is $21,957. In our HR department, this accounts for a 3% COLA. Also a request for their certifications and dues of $5,685 and promotional items for job fairs of $1,500. So a total increase to the HR department of $8,901. In the finance department, it accounts for a 3% COLA for staff, total increase of $14,142. In our IT department, this is based off of the proposed salary increase that's listed below. So a total increase of $9,397. The library department, a 3% COLA, an increase of $13,937. In our planning and land use department, we have unfroze the code enforcement building official, added one new FTE for either the housing coordinator or economic developer, and also includes the pay increases per the pay schedule below, as well as a 3% COLA for staff. They are also requesting employee professional development for Justina in the amount of $1,500. And this was a calculation error, so it was not reflected on the packet material that was posted. But we did need to increase that by $4,750 for subscriptions. So it reflected like 11,000 on the sheet. So it is, the accurate amount is 16,500. So total increase for planning and land use is $29,388. In our streets department, this accounts for a 3% COLA, as well as unfreezing the service worker position. So a total increase of $57,163. In our general services department, we unfroze the service worker. We have a salary increase per the proposed schedule below, a 3% COLA for staff, and we're also proposing moving the custodian from part-time to full-time, so from 50% to 100%. So total increase for general services, $96,141. In our parks department, we've accounted for minimum wage at $12 plus a 3% COLA for an increase of $18,450. Our fleet department accounts for a 3% COLA, total increase $3,883. In our public safety department, this accounts for a 3% COLA plus a $2K vacation payout request for staff that exceeded their carryover amounts at the end of the year.
Ms.
Also,
Ortiz, again, I
yeah.
apologize for getting you after you had left general services. There were just a couple large numbers and increases that I noticed in para and health insurance. Those seemed relatively higher for general services than in other departments. Could you go over that?
So actually the projected budget, so let me go to my salary schedule really quick. Give me 1 second.
You're printing them on. Is that an extra budget there?
And you're like, can I have one?
So the para here is 57,470. That is a typo. It should be 57,470. Which is about 5K difference from the budget for FY21. So I will update that. Let me make a note on this one. Thank you, Mayor, for pointing that out.
You got it. And the same may be true for the healthcare insurance because that $18,000 increase is unusually high.
I will look at that. So it's about 10K difference. Okay, so are we okay moving forward?
Yes, go ahead. Thank you.
So back to public safety. They have requested an increase of 40,000 to their overtime budget. So what we have proposed is taking 40K from their care of prisoners and adding it to the overtime. So you'll see an increase from of 40K here and a decrease of 40,000 here. So a total increase of 72,989. In our fire department, we are proposing a new FTE for a fire inspector, 2 new FTEs for firefighters. This also accounts for the 1% on their collective bargaining agreement, the 3% COLA, and 21.5K vacation payout request. They have also requested an increase of 12K for maintenance vehicles and an increase of 5K for employee professional development. Therefore, a total increase of $456,519. And for central administration.
Before we move on, let's tackle a couple of these questions. First, I'll start with what just jumps out at me are the FICA and the para and the healthcare insurance numbers. Can you go over those as well, please?
Yes, let me pull those. Let me take a snapshot of this really quick.
Thinks it's sinking. So we'll give
So the FICA is 84,190. So it's the combination of 68,233 plus 15,957, which is 84,190. The para is 305,581. And also in the fire department, the para rate has recently increased. And because it is the way that is written 75-25%, we have to also pick up a share of that cost. So there's also an increase to the para cost specifically for the fire department. And then the health insurance, 207,806. So all of those numbers match up right in here.
Okay, now I think that there's an estimate clearly for a new fire inspector. Is there an equivalent change in revenue for what is expected to be made from that position?
Well, what we have proposed for that position was unfreezing the two positions that I had mentioned earlier, the court clerk and the PSA. So that was 47,800 for that and another 43K here. The total for the fire inspector proposed.
Ms. Ortiz, maybe I should rephrase my question. What I meant was that fire inspector is a new expense because it's a new position. But will that position be bringing in any revenue? And is that recognized anywhere on the revenue side of the budget?
So we do anticipate bringing in revenue from that position as they would be out doing inspections. Fire fees, we did not put a dollar amount in there. It's kind of hard to assess at this point since this is new. I mean, we could project, 20,000 as a starting point if we feel comfortable with that. But I guess I would defer to Chief Padilla as to what his revenue expectations are in revenue generation.
Thank you, Ms. Ortiz. We'll go to Chief Padilla, and then we have a question from Councilor Peggy Sue Martinez.
Mr. Mayor, members of the governing body, as we've been going in through this inspection, new ground for doing this. So if we're looking at, we have around 300 businesses in the city, and that's not including new businesses that are coming up right now. We're looking at, and this is just an estimate of for the annual inspections of $15,000, and I'm just going off the smallest fee rate, and because we do not know the square footage of every building in town, and that's what we're going to probably try to do within the first year. Within other cities our size, they begin their inspections, their life safety inspections in January, February, and March, and have them done all by March. And then from there, this inspector would be doing, looking at complaints, public education, working with the schools, and any new businesses that are coming up. And it seems like the new businesses it's a constant role that we're attending or inspecting these new businesses. I don't know what's in that fire fee fund right now, but it's keeping the three guys that are doing the inspections pretty busy. So it is definitely a need. So, I mean, I think Jessica's right. We could predict 15 to 20. It's probably gonna, I would say it would start projectively going up as the years go by.
Thank you, Chief Padilla. Councilor Peggy Sue Martinez.
Thank you, Mayor. So Jessica, last year when the businesses purchased their business license, that fire fee was paid for prior to getting any fire inspection, and then we never got the fire inspection, so they held that back this year so that it would cover the fire inspection for this year. So I'm curious where that shows in the budget and how much that amount was.
So prior to us separating out the fees were included in the business license registrations. So you can see, well, for this fiscal year, we have collected 27,122. So part of those fees are in that revenue line item because it was part of the charge when they renewed the business license.
So it was never actually taken out So we don't have a figure as to what has already been paid for and what people are owed as far as the fire inspection goes.
I would defer to Ron. Ron, do you happen to know how that works?
I believe what I researched, I don't have that paperwork in front of me. I would have to dig it out. And as we discussed, Jessica, I believe there was two different accounts, but one of them was directed into the general fund. The last time I looked at that account, when I took over as fire chief, that was at about 28,000, but it was in the general fund, and so the fire department didn't have access to it. That's what I remember. I have the paperwork somewhere. I'll have to dig it out and give you those answers at a later time, and work with Jessica to make sure that we are giving you those right numbers.
I really feel like it's important to understand the different portions of the business license for the business sector, because some of us did pay for the fire inspection last year, didn't get the fire inspection, so it was held back for this year. So there's sort of that money like in savings. So that money in itself, we should have a definite figure on how many businesses and what it is and how much that line item has in it. And that would tell us how much we could probably be projecting in the same line item for next year. Thank you.
Thank Mr. Padilla. Did you
Yes,
have a follow-up on that?
Mr. Mayor, members of governing body, Peggy Sue Martinez. I think this is why there is a need for a direct fire inspector, because so we can have control of what's happening here. Over the last year, I have tried to vamp this. So we have, Richard and I have been working together to make sure that we have lists, square footage, and trying to get these out in a timely manner. I think a lot of it was also due to COVID, and some inspections weren't happening. But as the years progressed, people are wanting to open up their businesses, and we're getting out there to take care of those inspections. I can look into that and get you those exact numbers here within a couple of days, ma'am.
Thank you, Chief Padilla. We have a question from Councilor John Ramon Vigil.
Thank you. Mr. Martinez, Ms. Ortiz, was Judge Martinez consulted regarding the removal of this position from his budget?
Honorable Mayor, members of the governing body. So we met with every single department head to include Judge Martinez. This position was never actually in the FY21 budget because it was frozen, so it did not reflect on the budget. Does that make sense?
But it was originally budgeted, is my point. So
Correct.
was he consulted regarding this reallocation of funds?
We discussed on that. I know that Judge Martinez made his request in regards to bringing back that position back into his department for the third court clerk. But looking at what the requests from other departments, we had to look at what the big priorities were in regards of needs. I know in the past 2 years, we'd focused heavily on public safety with the police department. In 2019, FY20, we made the budget and gave the PD 2 additional officers and 1 correctional position, 3 positions. This year, we focused heavily on the fire department with the lack of staff. As you know, COVID was heavy to where the chief had to freeze vacation the latter part of the year. So we focused on where the needs were stronger for all departments.
So a follow-up question. You're telling me that the judge and elected official asked for this to stay in his budget, and you're choosing to not reallocate money towards that position?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Judge Martinez, go right ahead, sir.
Mr. Mayor, council members, with regards to that position, we did hold a rather extensive discussion on the fact that the court was in desperate need of the position, and here's the reason why. As I've stated before, currently we have 1,265 active cases. And those are not, does not include the incoming cases. Those are simply cases that are on the books. We have 762 outstanding warrants. And those matters have to be addressed. Now, our current caseload, I'm gonna go ahead and give you some statistics backtracking to 2019. July to March 2021 is only 587 cases for that period. But 2020, 762. Now, July to March of 2019, the court handled 1,067 cases. Those were active cases handled just during that period. I went into extensive detail with Mr. Martinez and staff as to what it takes for one clerk to handle just one case. Something as simple as a citation. I don't want to bore you with the details, but I can tell you that one clerk to handle one citation can take as many as 10 to 15 minutes because all the data from the citation has to be manually entered into a computer. They have to issue notices. They have to prepare documents for the trial. They have to prepare post-trial documents. And then if the defendant fails to appear, they have to file additional documents. And that's just for one citation. Now, if we look at a DWI case, for example, you can multiply that effort by 4 or 5 times. So given that we anticipate opening the court to the public probably within 2 or 3 months, I have no doubt in my mind that within 6 months or 4 to 6 months, we will be up to the 2019 level with regards to incoming cases. So the question remains, how are, and I can assure you that my staff is working diligently from the moment they come in to the moment they leave to keep this place running, and we're going to continue to do that. But without that additional position, I do have to advise you that it's going to be a very difficult task trying to address the 1,265 cases that go back as far as 2000 and the 762 active warrants. Now we're going to stay on top of all current activity. And to the extent that we can, we're going to backtrack on the warrants and those other active cases. But without the additional clerk, I'm afraid that that issue may remain with the court and will continue to haunt the city in the future. Again, I'm gonna do everything in my power to try to address those problems. But without that third clerk, I can't make any promises at this time. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Follow up.
Thank you. Councilor John Ramon Vihil, go ahead.
Judge Martinez, so in retrospect, you're indicating that the loss of this position would detriment the court and be unable to provide a service to the community, and pretty much you lose oversight over your department, correct?
Yes, sir. To a large extent, or to some extent, yes.
Thank you, Judge Martinez, for your comments.
Councilor Ritchie.
Thank you, Mayor. Your Honor, Martinez,
Yes, sir.
how many clerks do you need in the department?
To address the issues that I've identified, we need 3, sir. We have 2 at present.
And how many personnel do you have total?
6,
And what are the other positions? Could any of those be utilized as a clerk?
as a matter of fact, we've used our teen court representative on occasions during emergency situations. For example, when one of our employees was out, we went 2 weeks with just 1 clerk, and our teen court representative filled in to some degree.
Back to follow up again, just to clarify, can we utilize the personnel more into the clerk's position compared to the others? Because what are the other 3 4 positions?
We have our manager, Ann, who actually does all of the administrative matters, financial and otherwise.
Okay.
We have our community services director, and he is in charge of all community services, including being out with community service personnel. So if we only have 1 person signed up for community service, his time is completely taken with that 1 individual. And we are definitely going to increase our community service productivity here at the courtroom. We have our graffiti officer who's out daily. We provided, he's out daily, and he's almost always busy with the graffiti problem, but he also substitutes to some extent in working with our community service representative. And once we open up the courthouse, he's gonna be our bailiff, which he is our bailiff, but that's gonna be his position there. And then we have the two clerks that I mentioned earlier, as well as our teen court representative.
So the 1 personnel is maintenance and kind of double hit for maintenance and with community service, correct? Is that what-
I guess we can call it maintenance, but his position and his job duties are almost strictly taking care of the graffiti problems across the city. Yes, sir.
I apologize. I misunderstood your term. I apologize. It was bailiff. I thought you said maintenance.
Oh,
Apologize on that.
Since, if I may just interject, because there seems to be a huge backlog of these situations from a while back, is there a possibility, Ms. Ortiz, that we could use incoming ARP funds to fund a position, let's say because COVID maybe prevented us from moving forward during this last year, and maybe fund that position for a year in some fashion or another?
Honorable Mayor, members of the governing body, Ms. Ortiz, if you don't mind, I can chime on this, and I'll actually refer in, if Mr. Hubler, if you're available to assist on this. I know that Mr. Hubler has been doing some research in regards to how we can allocate or use these ARP funds, and ARP meaning the American Rescue Plan that is coming down federally in the next month or two. So Mr. Hubler, can you maybe address that question that the mayor had, sir?
Yes, sir. So one of the purposes of the ARP funds is to address the negative economic impacts caused by the health emergency, and that includes rebuilding public sector capacity. I'm reading from a Department of Treasury fact sheet here, by rehiring public sector staff, in each case up to pre-pandemic levels. So I read that to mean that since we froze that position last year as a result of COVID, we could effectively bring it back this year, fund it with the ARP funds.
All right, very well. Thank you for that. Mr. Padilla, you have your hand up. Can you unmute yourself, sir?
Mr. Mayor, members of the governing body, and all due respect, Your Honor Martinez, the fire department's in a dilemma, and that dilemma is the lack of staffing. We meet the OSHA regulations and NFPA regulations 5.3% of the time with our response time. Our gentlemen, our firefighters are supposed to be using two bottles when they're out, a 20-minute rest, food and drink, and they're using 4. These guys are going, and ladies and gentlemen are going way over and beyond what our regulations state. And that's why our ISO is the way we are. We don't have the water supply, and we don't have the staffing. And without that staffing and looking at how we are going to start building this staffing, I'm going to be honest with you. One of my staff is going to get hurt or they're going to die. And that's why you guys have me in this position as the fire chief. I'm the expert at my craft, and I've been doing it for 23 years, and I do not want this to happen on my watch. However, if we fund it, that's fine. But I need to let you know that. And we are not even close to being where we need to be, and it needs to be addressed. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Councilor John Ramon Vigil.
Thank you. I just have concern, Mr. Martinez, the city manager, regarding city code, and city code is specific. It says municipal judge shall be administrator of the municipal court and shall be responsible for establishing an effective and efficient court system. So in that aspect, when we appointed Judge Martinez, we expected him to carry out the position, run the municipal court as needed and need to. And so it's apparent that Judge Martinez is unable to carry out his duties and responsibilities as municipal code states, because he's blatantly said he cannot handle the court load with only 2 court clerks.
Thank you for the commentary, Councilor. I think we can move on and then maybe later on make recommendations. So Ms. Ortiz, if you could continue your presentation, please.
Okay, thank you. So we were on our central admin department. This is where we account for all of our contractual services, our utility bills, as well as our insurance premiums. As you know, we recently moved insurance brokers, switched insurance brokers to Hub. And so we are still waiting on a quote from them. They are still shopping around for our insurance. They hope to have an answer to us here soon. But for the time being, we did assume a 7% increase over the premiums. That may be a little low, just, with all the past claims that we've had with travelers, and us also getting the notice that as of July 1st, we were going to be uninsurable in the law enforcement policy, as well as the employee policy. So that kind of threw a wrench in, the shopping around with travelers. So I spoke to Hub, to Martin today, and he said that he is actively working proposals and talking with other insurance brokers. So he does hope to have us an answer here real soon. So this could be, this is a kind of an unknown right now. Like I said, we assumed a 7% increase, but I don't, we're not too sure at this point what our final number is going to be. So with that, a $47,000 increase in the central administration fund. Our transfers out represent our debt service that is tied to this, to the general fund. So we have a payment of $99,121. That is for our ladder truck. We also have a payment of $553,779. And this is a loan that we refinanced back in 2017. That was a refinance from loans back in the 1990s, 94, 99, refunded back in 2007, then refunded again in 2017. So it's just been a reoccurring debt service that we have carried. And we don't, this is set to be paid off in 2025. So we have 5 more payments left for a total principal balance of about $2.6 million. So looking at our proposal, we have come up with 2 different proposals. The first one is looking at our projected cash. So looking at that, taking the projected revenue of $11,072,546, plus adding back in our prior year cash that we did use this fiscal year that we budgeted for. We didn't, it wasn't affected in any way because you can see we're still managing revenues to expenditures. So with that, we took the total projected revenue plus the prior year cash of $697. And we're also proposing to pay off this loan. So that eliminates the $554,000 that we would have to pay this coming fiscal year. Our total expenditures are $11,767,000. So looking at that, we would stay with a positive balance of $1,737. If we take out the prior year cash, excluding the $697,000, that would just give us the projected revenue again of $11,072,000. And then our projected expenditures of $11,767,000, we would be negative $695,267. City Manager, do you want to add anything to this?
Thank you, Ms. Ortiz. Honorable Mayor, members of the governing body. So I guess would like to explain a little bit in regards to the request payoff of that loan that we have. So as Ms. Ortiz stated, the current balance of that loan is $2.6 million. The average interest rate for that loan is, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Ortiz, it's roughly between 2 to 3% interest, because there are multiple small loans, because it was considered a consolidated loan. So it's an average about a 2.5% interest that we pay on that loan. And as Ms. Ortiz mentioned, we have 5 years to pay on that. So if we let it continue as is, the city will pay close to $170,000 in interest for that. we are proposing to pay that loan off, which is 2.6 million from one of our savings accounts that is currently getting interest of 0.25, which the interest is really low, as Ms. Ortiz presented earlier in the revenue, where she subtracted some numbers because of the interest rates that have been dropped here recently. So with that, that would free up a little over $500,000 for the next 5 years back into the general fund, and save the city close to $170,000 in interest to that. So I add to that. I stand for any questions in regards to that item.
Bless you. All right, I think we're digesting that for just a second. Before we, I suppose, go on, Ms. Ortiz, I have a question on the revenue side of things. When we're looking at the first page, and we're looking at gross receipts revenue, and it's fiscal year 21 actuals. As of what date is that an actual? Did we get, today's the 18th, does that include the numbers that we got yesterday?
No, it does not include the numbers that we got yesterday. This was as of April month end that I started working on this proposal.
So conceivably, we need an extra 2 months, is that right?
That is correct.
So just hypothetically, I don't know if you have this number off the top of your head. Where do you see the next 2 months taking us in terms of actual fiscal year 21 versus budgeted?
So just really quick, let me see. I kind of worked up a little proposal here, just looking at numbers earlier. So these are what the numbers that have posted today. So this includes the April numbers here in my little proposal. I mean, in my little worksheet and this isn't provided as packet material because I just looked at this earlier, but looking at it, we're pretty close to where we were projecting to be, taking into account the revenue for this month. So you can see here, we had about 3.4 million, and right in here, it was, and these are the biggest contributors, 4.4 million for the state portion of it. And if we look at my projections, 3.4 million and 4.4 million. So they're pretty much right on with the current allocation this month.
So I guess what I'm getting at is you're expecting the fiscal year 21 actuals to come right in line with the budgeted amount?
So looking right here, I'm projecting it to come in. So we budgeted at 4.2 million. I'm projecting it to come in at 4.4 million, which is a $221,000 increase. Same for the municipal gross receipts tax. We budgeted 3.2 million, and I'm projecting it to come in at 3.4 million, a difference of 140,000.
Got it.
And that's just based on actuals. It's not taking into account any increases in GRT or anything like that. You know, one of the things is we'll be seeing come now July 1, the online tax sales, but I'm not sure how, you know, that's going to affect us. Currently, we get about 18,000 per month from the online sales. It'll be interesting to see how much more they're going to release into the cities based on location. So, you know, that's another factor in there. The other factor is the recreational pot. However, we won't see that until next June, being that, you know, it goes into effect in April of 2022. There is the 2-month lag. So we will see about 1 month worth of revenue for the recreational pot sales as well. So that'll be interesting to see how that plays out into our revenue stream.
And if you could do another favor for me, I unfortunately was distracted shortly. Could you give me your 2 different options that you were discussing earlier?
Yes, so the options below projected is the 11,769,550 revenue, which is our projected revenue plus the prior year cash of 697,000. That would leave us a positive balance of 1,737. And that takes into account everything that we mentioned, from unfreezing the positions to a 3% COLA, to the proposed salary increases here of about 60,000. The increases for the para, the new FTEs for fire, the new FTEs for planning and land use, and taking into account the payoff of our loan of 554,000. If we choose not to include a prior year cash, we are at a negative 695,267.
I suppose in my mind, prior year's cash would only work if this year's actuals are higher than our budget and that we had leftovers, savings from other places. Is that where we're at?
Yes.
Okay. Will Councilor Peggy Sue Martinez, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Jessica. I'm trying to be very patient, but I can't lie and say that I'm not getting a little frustrated. So on both these proposals, you're talking about the payoff request of 553,000 from 2.1 million out of savings that the city has had for many, many years. Correct?
Yes.
So the city manager is talking about the savings of $170,000 of interest that we could save if we went ahead and proposed it. Are we pulling that money because we want to save the interest, or are we pulling that money because we want to balance our budget? There's a big problem for me in that. The other thing is that the 2.1 million that has been in savings, multiple years that we've discussed this situation, I've always said that we should be doing a government investment, that we should have taken that money out of there a long time ago. It can be pulling up to 6 to 8% to the government investment pool. There's no reason to have it sitting in a bank earning nothing. I've said that over and over again, and yet that money still sits there gaining zero on behalf of the taxpayer. That's crazy. To me, if you have a budget where you have to pull $553,779 out to pay that off, to balance your budget, something's wrong in the budget. There's way too much spending going on. That's how I feel. And just so that the public knows, this is the first proposed budget that I've seen as a city councilor. We're 2 weeks away from turning this in, and this is the first time that I get to have my eyes on it. So that's a little frustrating too. Normally, I like to pick through this extensively, and I haven't had a chance to do that. And here we are in the midst of it, almost to vote on it in a couple of weeks. So I have concerns about that too. Taking that 553,000, paying it off with savings, to balance a budget. Then what happens when that money's supposed to get saved and put back in? It'll go back into the general fund and it'll be gone, poof, just like that. The other thing that I have a concern about is that we talked about when Kelly Duran was our city manager, we talked about the need to start planning and figuring out how we're going to be honorable to the promise that we made to the constituents in Prince Ranch. At that point, the council voted and determined that we would save money from prior year's cash every year and put it in an account for the specific purpose of doing the planning and making sure that we come through with the promise of providing those entities with sewer. The importance of that is that if we can be honorable to the promises that we've made to people that have come into the city, then we can go ahead and allow ourselves to grow in areas like El Llano, Fairview, and other areas where we're sort of checkerboarded in and out of city limits all over the place. So if we're honorable to the constituents that we have now, and we provide them with the infrastructures that we told them that we would provide them with, then it would allow us to grow our base and to grow our community. That is important. And that's the reason that I really have a heartburn with including all of the prior year's cash just to balance the budget. I have other problems with it, but we'll continue. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. So I think those are some very relevant questions, and Ms. Ortiz, if we can start to maybe pick some of those off. This transfer of that payment, that's also new to me in terms of, what we're doing here. I'm looking at that page on the screen, and I'm not necessarily seeing that savings of $170,000. Am I missing something?
So that's when you actually look at the amortization schedule of the loan. So
Okay.
just, looking here, this is our annual payments that we have left. 500,000, 505, 520, 530, 545. It goes up. And then this is the total interest that we pay. So a combination of 2.7 million, 160,000 of that is interest.
That's per annum.
What's that? I'm sorry.
Is that per year?
Yes.
So is that reflected in the budgetary numbers in terms of what goes out on the expense side?
That is reflected as the 554,000 or 553,779, which is not included in here because that's part of the proposal. But the total loan payment for this year is 553,779.
I see. Okay, so that full payment includes principal and interest.
That is correct.
Okay. Let's ask, is that 2.7 million or 2.1 million?
It is 2.7 million.
And what is the interest rate one more time?
The interest rate is 2.5%.
I mean, that's a pretty darn good interest rate to maintain, to not have to pay it off all at once. I mean, when we think about it this way, we're only paying a 2.5% interest rate on debt, but yet we're giving a 3% COLA raise. So, I mean, that's kind of the way that you'd want to do it mathematically. Because technically we're borrowing at 2.5% to get pretty close to that payment. Okay, so that's something to consider here.
Honorable Mayor.
Yes,
members of the
Mr.
governing body.
Martinez.
Yes, and also on the line, so we have our budget analyst, Ms. Ursula Tencio. So just, I guess, a little bit more in depth as to how we arrived in regards to paying that loan off. So the current savings balance on the account is, and I believe it's 8.3 million on the savings. So we are proposing to pull a third of that to pay the 2.6 million on this loan, which would free up all the hold harmless that we have going that's tied in for that. So the hold harmless, I believe right now we're getting a little over 800,000 per year on the hold harmless. By paying that loan off, we will free up that 558,000. Now that savings account is generating 0.25 interest. Now that's where the mathematics comes in. I believe that, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Atencio, with the way the growth of that savings account, how long will it take to regenerate that money that we're proposing to pull out to pay for this loan?
Hello, good evening, Mayor, members of the governing body, and City Manager Javier Martinez. We're proposing to use the funds from one of our, again, savings account, which has the bank balance of 8.3 million. And so the thought process with doing the requested payoff was to again pay off the total loan amount, which is the 2.7. And again, with utilizing this bank account, it's money coming in and really no money going out other than the fee that we pay monthly to maintain the credit card website, if you will. So it's essentially customers making payments and the money getting deposited into this account. And again, to maintain the account, we pay a monthly fee of between $1,300 to $1,600 every month. So this account generates interest, which is, maybe $1,500 a month as well at that 2.5%. So it essentially covers that interest, essentially covers the fees that we pay out. So the money that we have in this account, it's replenishing itself every month. And so I see anywhere from monthly, anywhere from 125,000. I think the largest I've seen is 170,000 being deposited into this account every month. So if you do the math,
Ms.
Mhm.
Ms. I'm gonna slow things down.
Mhm.
It's not being replenished. It's, in other words, it's profit from a different department. So it's not as if it's growing itself. So the real question is, if we were to put that money in a pool that was actually making money, and not just 0.025% or 0.25%, what is that? What are the current rates? As Councilor Peggy Sue Martinez said, we've been asking actually that get done and that we put that in the pool. I mean, what are the rates that a return on that? I mean, technically we could borrow at 2.5% all day long and invest at 3% and make that difference. But do you know what the rates are currently paying right now?
Mayor, Ursula, I can answer that question. So we do have funds invested in the local government investment pool through the state treasurer's office. That's the LGIP fund. And that too, the interest rate on that has gone down significantly from a couple of years ago. So the current yield on that, looking at my April statement, April 2021, the current yield is 0.0771. So it is a lot less than 0.25% that we are receiving through our local institution.
Are there, and I'll go right back to Councilor Peggy Sue Martinez, but are there various funds? Because that could be the money market fund. There could also be other ones that are available. Is there only one, or are there several that we could be looking at?
Well, I believe, so this is the general investment account that's managed through the state treasurer's office. And they're the ones that, invest our funds for us. So,
okay.
But looking at our current yield, it's, 0.0771. We have the balance of 1.9 million in that account, and we earn interest of $135 per month.
Okay.
Whereas in the past, we were seeing a yield of 2.65, and we would see interest of $1,500 a month. So the rates have gone down significantly. So, even looking at the LGIP, I think we're still getting a better rate at our local institution than what we would be through the LGIP fund.
Thank you for that. Councilor Peggy Sue Martinez.
So just on a follow-up, I still feel like it's important to look into the government investment fund and continue to see what that is bringing in. That amount that you're talking about seems awfully low to me because it had been producing at least 6% over the last 2 years. The deal with what you're talking about and what the city manager said concerning the hold harmless tax, there was a reason why the city encumbered that hold harmless tax in a debt. And the reason for that was that if it came to be that the state legislature decided to change their mind and cancel the hold harmless tax, then we would not lose that money because it was encumbered into that debt. So there was a reason that debt was created with that whole harmless fund being put towards that debt, so that if it ever happened, we would not lose that money.
Honorable Mayor, members of the governing body, Councilor Peggy Sue Martinez. So I did research on that, as a matter of fact. So right now, that whole harmless, it's supposed to expire 15 years from its enactment, which I believe it was right around 2012. So every year we lose 6% until it is gone. So right now we're at roughly around 63% of the whole harmless that we receive. And every year we're losing 6%, and not just us, it's throughout every municipality that gets the hold harmless. So by locking into this loan, that is not the case here, ma'am. So we will still receive the whole harmless until that runs out. So now the municipal league is strongly advocating at the state legislature to bring that back. But that's going to happen regardless of what direction we go. That whole harmless is eventually going to cease to exist after the 15 years. I'm sorry, Jessica, am I misspeaking here? Go ahead.
Yes, so just a point of clarification, I apologize. So this was the conversation that I had with Dave Monteith after the fact, after that you had spoke with the New Mexico Municipal League. And so I explained our situation to him. As you know, as of July 1st, or I'm sorry, yes, July 1st, 2020, but it wasn't effective until now. Basically, all ordinances at the local level have been de-enacted at the state level. So what that means is right now, the hold harmless grocery receipts tax, and this is how it was explained to me from Dave Monteith, who's the the liaison for tax and rev, is now that they've done away with all of those enactments, that hold harmless grocery receipts tax is rolled into the municipal options. So at that point, they cannot take away our hold harmless grocery receipt tax. He said we will have that revenue forever because of how they've de-enacted the ordinances. So he did say, if, being that we do have debt tied to that hold harmless, that it would be beneficial to us if we could pay it off, because we would realize that savings on an annual basis. So we won't phase out, the hold harmless will not phase out. It was de-enacted at the state level. We will keep that amount.
Thank you, Ms. Ortiz, for stopping me and correcting me. Thank you.
All right. Do we have any other questions from councilors? All right, you can continue, Ms. Ortiz. Thank you.
So that concludes our presentation or proposal for the general fund. I'm not sure how we want to proceed. If there's any requested changes.
Why don't we go on to the water department, and then we can kind of continue and decide how we're going to perhaps make any changes at that point.
Okay, so looking at our water department, we are looking at a 3% COLA for staff. So you will see an increase of 24,000. Bottom line, their actual budget is equal, so it's a flat budget. We did take out the city attorney because we had budgeted for AJ at one point, 25% in the water department, 25% in the wastewater department. So we took that funding out. We met with Stephen and he met with all of his supervisors. And so they felt comfortable with the numbers that are proposed. We did increase insurance premiums as we did in the general fund of $12,000. And these other changes are just bars that happened within the fiscal year and, moving money around. So bottom line, the budget did not increase. We are also looking at their debt service. So these are all the, this is a transfer out to the Water Rights Fund to pay for our services with Glorietta Geoscience and their professional services. Transfer out of 425,000, that remained flat from last year. There's a loan that we have with the Nmfa for water improvements. It's the Water Trust Board. We owe about 108,000. The annual payment is 13,600. So, that's also another loan that we're looking at possibly, paying off in order to save interest and free up that amount on an annual basis. We also have a debt service loan with Nmfa. This loan is split between the water fund, the wastewater fund, and our grocery receipts tax. So each of them pay 1/3 of the total loan balance, annual payment to include principal and interest. And then this other is another loan with Nmfa, and that is split between water and wastewater. And that's for the new metering project that we have recently implemented. The water department has used prior year cash balance. So looking at our proposal, 3.913 projected revenue. So that's looking at our total projected revenue of $3,066,000 for the fiscal year, and including $846,000 of our prior year cash, leaving us with a positive balance of $2,195. If we exclude our prior year cash, we would have projected revenues of $3,066,462 and expenses of $3,911,209 with a negative balance of $844,747.
Okay, I'd like to start off with one of the first questions regarding our revenue numbers. We're looking at fiscal year 21 actuals versus budget, and we seem to be very way off. So I'd like to see what you're thinking there.
Let me see really quick. Hold on.
So that's where we're off the 846,000 perhaps. Estimated budget for fiscal year 21, that 2.908 million. Is that what you're assuming we will end out the year with?
Yes, 2.9 million. And like I said, that doesn't include any of the prior year cash. So that's looking at 2.9 million and expenses of 2.9, leaving us with a negative balance of 25,000 at the end of the fiscal year projected. But let me look at some numbers really quick. $2 million. Okay, so yes, that number, these numbers are correct. So that's what we've collected through May 31st, or I'm sorry, through April. And
So
again,
that-
this is just looking at, taking a straight line or an annualized revenue, and with our time elapsed, and that's the projection that it's giving us. Again,
But-
I based the budget off of a flat budget.
Okay, let's look at that 2.908 million number that's in the green that says fiscal year estimated budget. Am I correct in understanding that that's where you expect us to finish off the fiscal year?
That is correct.
Okay, but yet our budget was $3.9 million.
Yes.
We're off $1 million.
But that budget included 846,000 of prior year cash. Which in this one, all we're looking at is revenues to expenditures. So you can see that we did not, utilize the prior year cash.
So I guess here's the thing, when we're looking at revenue expectations, we can't use prior year's cash as an expected revenue plug or number. So that shouldn't be there because it
Right.
just doesn't
This
go
is
there.
just looking at revenues to expenditures.
Okay, so the 3.9 minus 846 would be about what, 3.1 something or another?
This minus this, 3,066,000.
Yeah, so just over 3 million. So we're pretty close to being right
that
on
number
budget, about $100,000 off.
Yes. $158,000.
Okay, so we're expecting revenue to be about 3 million for fiscal year 22. So right in line with that other number. And what leads us to think that we're going to have a higher fiscal year 22 versus 21?
I'm sorry, in revenue or expenditures?
In revenue.
Or not? It's lower.
Right, so
Lower.
Not if you exclude the prior year's cash. So in other
Oh.
words, we're looking at the 2.9 million, which is where we'll probably end up this year. And then compared to the 3.066 million for next year. So is
And
that the same number? In other words, is 3.066 plus the 846,942 equal to the 3.913?
Yes.
Okay. So we're using the same expected revenue really in 2022 that we
Yes.
used in 2021.
Yes, you can see that these numbers, FY21 budget, FY20
Gotcha.
projected
Okay,
budget.
so that's supposed to be flat.
Yes.
Okay. But yet we were a little short. Just out of, I mean, I know it's not an insignificant number, that $150,000 difference. What can we attribute that to?
Well, I would say, just, I mean, the amount of collections that we received this far in the fiscal year, we had COVID played a big part into this. People weren't paying their bills as often. We weren't charging interest and penalties because of the whole COVID restrictions. But now, as the city manager mentioned at the last meeting, we will start collecting on penalties and interest and, processing disconnects and whatnot moving forward.
Okay, so then the next question I have is, does this revenue number include the money that we received through the CARES Act money that the county got and was able to disperse to the city?
No, this money is strictly water sales.
So then where did that money go?
Are you talking about the CARES money?
Yes.
So the CARES money that we received, the $1.2 million?
No, I'm talking about the county of Rio Arriba, who helped the people who were not able to pay their water bill during COVID.
Oh, yes, we do. Yes, I don't know the exact dollar amount of how much the county sent to us offhand. City manager or Richard, do you recall that dollar amount off the top of your head?
Honorable Mayor, members of the governing body, I believe that was close to in the range of 130,000.
I believe so.
Okay, and that's included in this revenue number, right?
Yes.
Okay. Councilor Peggy Sue Martinez.
So for the city manager, can you tell me, just by approximate percentage, how many accounts are in arrear and have been affected by the COVID situation of not having the option to disconnect at this time? So could you give us a rough number of what we're looking at and how many accounts are bad debt at this point?
Councilor Peggy Sue Martinez, Honorable Mayor, members of the governing body, I do not have that information readily available for me for tonight, but I can definitely produce that information at a later date.
Okay, follow up there.
Go ahead.
So one of the things that we had talked about when we decided to get more effective water meters was the possibility of doing a water audit throughout the city and finding out, making sure that every house that we have on every street has a direct connection to a city meter. And I felt like we talked about doing that. And then we also talked about possibly having a period of time where we allow people to connect at a lower amount without paying the water rights money that they have to pay, because that takes up a connection up to like $4,000 or more. So I felt like if we could possibly do that audit, it would help us with bringing everybody in and everybody paying into that water enterprise system. One of the other issues that I have is all the water that we're sending to the contract that we have in La Puebla. And I know that there's numerous families on that water system, which I have no problem serving them if it's necessary. But I also feel like they're paying exactly what it's costing the city to produce that water and get that water over there. And that is a cost to my constituency.
Cuatro Vías.
Yes, Cuatro Vías. So I would be hopeful that we could relook at that situation and know this, there's numerous families that are getting city water over there that have never paid that water right fee. Yet we expect our constituency here in Española to pay that fee, and I think that's a little ridiculous. So we need to come up with a plan where we possibly fund this type of an audit, where we get every single constituent their water source and figure out how they're getting water into their homes. And I think if we do that, we could really build this enterprise. So I really feel like it's something that we should invest in and we should do in the coming year. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Ortiz. You can continue. I'm sorry, you're still on mute.
I apologize.
Thank
Okay,
you.
so that concludes the water department proposal. Moving on to our wastewater department. We are looking again at flat budgets for wastewater, 2.2 million. We have collected 1.7 through the end of April. Miscellaneous water, and then also in this proposal, we took out the 693,442 of prior year cash. So that gives us a total projected revenue of 2,293,121. This also includes a 3% COLA for staff. And just know that, you know, these positions in water and wastewater are budgeted more than the actual salaries because it's based on pay plans. And we are short-staffed in the department, in both departments. And a lot of the workers that we're currently bringing in are, you know, level entry workers, service workers that have to move up in order to, you know, get any type of certifications and their levels. So this is a high number that I wanted to point out. It's budgeted at the pay plan rates. They too had a slight increase again for the insurance premiums. And then they did some bars in between, an increase of $1,000 for the audit contract. So a total increase of $8,000. The debt service that they have, 159,970. Again, as I mentioned, this is split between water and wastewater, and this is for the water metering project. The admin fee to the general fund of 308,000. This freed up 32,000. This was the loan that we just recently refinanced with NMED. The annual payment was 375,000. We were able to refinance for a 0% interest for the remainder of the life of the loan. Therefore, that frees up 32,000 in the water fund, as that loan is paid out of our infrastructure projects that is GRT funded for this specific purpose. So we do collect 344,000 to pay that loan. So that frees up the 32K. The Espanola 1213, that's the other loan that I told you that we have with Nmfa, and it's split 1/3 between the water fund, wastewater fund, and the gross receipts tax fund. So looking at total expenditures of 2,960,000. Looking at our proposals, total revenue that we were anticipating of 2,293,000 plus prior year cash of 693, giving us total projected revenue of 2,986,563. Our total projected expenses, 2,960,000, leaving us with a positive balance of 26,255. If we take out the prior year cash, we have a negative balance of 667,217. With the wastewater fund, we are looking at 12,000 negative at year end. Hopefully that will materialize, but 12K is an insignificant amount. That represents the wastewater department proposal.
Okay, I'm going to go back to the water and use wastewater as well, but I think we seem to have glossed over the fact that expenses that were budgeted for fiscal year 21 And when we look at 22, they've gone up 33%, $1 million. So if we're looking at the water fund, I'm looking at, no, I understand you, she just went over wastewater, but I'm going back to water. So on the water one, it's the second page.
Okay,
Okay, so we're looking at the expense total there, where it meets fiscal year 21 estimated budget is 2.933 million.
2.933, okay.
And then the fiscal 22 right next to it, 3.9 million. So that's a whole $1 million in additional estimated expenditures.
Let me see really quick. So right here, we have encumbrances of 328,826 that has not hit this fiscal year.
Well, it doesn't matter if it's hit, it's part of the budget, right?
Right, but look, based on this, it's looking at our year-end estimated budget. We don't have any actuals, so it automatically populates a zero. And I guess that would be a question for the supervisors if they anticipate that cost to come in this fiscal year or next fiscal year.
Well, I mean, it's supposed to be a part of it. In other words, that's our best expectation for what's going to happen in the next 2 months. We should be very clear about what's going to happen in the next 2 months and whether that's going to hit or not.
Right, and there's some items that, you know, like the vehicles, that there's, you know, a delay in getting them to us, so they won't hit this fiscal year. This could be this could be the case with the equipment and machinery that we have encumbered of 329,000. So I would have to defer to our public works director or to the supervisor to verify when they anticipate that cost to be posted. So we can follow up with them and verify that.
Yeah, I would just expect that when we see an increase of 33% in expenditures expectations, that we would have some kind of a really good answer as to why that's the case. You know, whether it's a matter of moving things around or, you know, when it hits or whatever, but these are expected budgets for the year. So kind of doesn't matter when it hits, it's about when it's supposed to be a part of that budget, because then it goes down and then up. But, you know, that's really important.
And this column here is just saying this is our fiscal year and estimated position. So again, based on actuals, because there is zero cost at the as of April month end.
So then, yes, but again, we only have 2 more months. So we should be very clear about what we're expecting. If the budget was supposed to be in expenditures 3.9 million, but we're now only at 2.9 million. I want some kind of an explanation as to say why we're coming in $1 million under budget, and then why next year we're going to be $1 million over budget, or $1 million over this year's budget. Do we have anyone from water, wastewater that can explain this?
Honorable Mayor, members of the governing body, no, we do not, sir.
Okay. Very similar questions for wastewater, because we are up $500,000 in terms of expected expenses.
So the money that we have encumbered right now, the 328,000 under the water department, that's actually for the Denora Water Technologies and Advanced Environmental. So you can see we have an open PO for 202,000 and an open PO for 125,000 for the total of 328. So I guess we'll follow up with Stephen and verify if this is something that, you know, is going to be charged this year, if that's going to be an expected expense going into next FY. And this is for the nitrate system, I believe.
That is correct, Jessica. It is for the nitrate filtration system that's being placed at well house number 7 off of Ranchitos Park.
Okay. That was the water side. Now, I had moved really quickly right back onto the wastewater side, where again, we're seeing, now, I guess here's the real question. The budget for fiscal 21 and 22 is very similar, 2.986 million, 2.96 million. But, you know, where we're at with that estimated budget is way off. So it'd be good to know why we came in so under budget. But then again, you know, if that's the real number.
And as I mentioned, the full-time positions, the labor portions are budgeted way higher than what we actually spend. If you see here, we have in the wastewater department, so looking at our total labor budget, which includes, you know, FICA, para, health insurance, all of that, workers' comp, we're looking at 1,155,000. As I stated, these are all based on the pay plan levels. If you look at our actual expenses, what we've spent year to date is only 536,000.
Well, what we need to do is get better at estimating where we're at and not just using sort of the pay scale.
Well, the reason for budgeting at the pay scale is because those are approved levels based on certifications and levels. However, you know, these departments are severely understaffed, and the staff that we do have and the new hires that we are bringing on are service workers. They are not your water operator 1, they're not your water operator 2. So in essence, we have all these salary savings because they are underfilled positions.
Okay, I got it. Now I got you.
And that's the same for the water department. So if we look at the water department, total labor budget is 1,307,000. And if we look at year-to-date actuals, we've only spent 735,000.
Okay, we have a question from Councilor Peggy Sue Martinez. Go ahead.
I know that the state sort of froze the school for water and wastewater training for during the COVID time. So I figured that had something to do with that cost savings, but I'm curious as to how many of those positions were just cost savings because we didn't fill the position, or is there anything vacant there that's happening or anything like that?
There are vacancies. I don't have the exact number. I would have to defer to HR for that number. We can look at that and get back to you. But if we look at just really quick, the salary plan for water and wastewater. You will see that, you know, we have our director, our water operations supervisor, water operator 2, water operator 1, water operator 3. Those are all vacant positions. So what we have mainly, you know, as the maintenance workers on staff, and I know it's been challenging to, you know, find people with these certifications and with these levels that are needed, competing with other municipalities and other organizations, and the pay, it's tough. And so, you know, the water and wastewater department constantly see turnover.
And I think the issue with them not having an opportunity to test off in that situation where COVID sort of had them stagnant and they were not able to attend those trainings, I think that also probably played into that cost savings to some extent. I don't know if as much as it's showing, but to some extent.
I guess my issue with budgeting is we need to get better at expecting what we expect. In other words, if we have 5 open positions and we recognize that we probably won't get them all, then we have to get better at getting an expected number. Because then at the end of the year, it looks like, woohoo, we saved $1 million, but we knew that we weren't really going to spend that to begin with. So I think we need a bit more of an accurate way of understanding how we're going to end out at the year, but managers also need to say, when we're budgeting, I absolutely need to fill this position. So we need to recognize that, yes, that will get close. This one, perhaps not so much. I think it just seems like, we're missing the target at 33%. Councilor Denise Benavides.
Agreed.
Thank you, Mayor. So Jess, I have a question regarding process. Do we have any type of process in place where we require our department directors to, let's say, tell us what POs they have that they're going to roll over? Do we have any type of schedule for those directors with timetables? Same thing for encumbrances. I mean, I have a feeling that there's misunderstanding as well from some of the department directors, and this is why a portion of this is happening. Do we have any type of process or program that we have now where we're actually having those department directors do part of this work and allocate their funding properly? I mean, it's something that says, are you going to spend it this fiscal year? Are you going to roll it over to the next fiscal year? Because I think if we had something in place like that, I mean, it would definitely help them to understand what they were doing when it comes to budget, but it would also help us when we get to the end that we're trying to balance the budget, that these types of questions don't come up. Or is it all in your hands?
No, it is not all in my hands.
Okay.
They all have a say in this. And also, like I said, us budgeting, we need to expect, we have to budget at what we expect. So should we, like I said, it's unfortunate that a lot of these positions in the water and wastewater department are underfilled with service workers, but that's all we can get at this point. We're having, it's been difficult to obtain, water operators 1, 2, 3 in both of the departments. And it's unfair to say that, okay, well, we're not going to budget for them this year because we're having a hard time filling, but should we pick up that expense? That's really an approved FTE that belongs to that department.
Okay. I guess I know that you have meetings with them, but is there any type of formal process, any paperwork that they're required to submit or anything like that?
And as far as fiscal year end, yes, they have a schedule. So our last day for submitting any types of purchases is coming up at the end of May 24th. They have until June 11th to submit all invoices. So they're all sent an open PO report with all the open POs that they have, outstanding amounts. And they all work very hard at working with vendors, ensuring, because they're the ones that know exactly, have I received this item? Am I going to expect it anytime soon? Is this something that needs to be rolled over? And so, yes, when we did have those budget discussions, there was requests to roll over certain funds because they knew that, the items or equipment, whatever they're purchasing, isn't going to be delivered by fiscal year end.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
So, Ms. Ortiz, I believe that we are sort of at that point now where we've discussed everything that we need to, unless there's more that we're looking at.
That pretty much sums the proposals.
And I'm going to go on a ledge here and suggest that we have a lot to digest before we make any real decisions. I think we need to truly come to terms with whether or not this council wants to pay off that $2.7 million loan out of our cash reserves to save $553,000 a year. I don't know that we want to do that because just as was mentioned earlier, just so that we can balance our budget. But if that's the case and we don't use prior year's cash, then we're off about $1 million, which is about a 10% number, give or take, maybe 8 or 9%. So I think that those are some very strong considerations that we truly need to take into hand. We are looking at what I find to be incredibly strange numbers, with water being over $1 million on that budget, wastewater being over $500,000. And I'm using the numbers of what we expect to happen in the next 2 months compared to what fiscal year 22 will bring. We have a couple departments that are asking for increases or maintaining that I think we have real questions on. Just a random question, Ms. Ortiz, do you know if I tried to see if we could get increased money for asphalt in the streets department? Was that considered at all?
Yes, Honorable Mayor, that is reflected in the 210 road fund. And also the water department also budgets for pavement as well when they do any type of construction work in those areas.
Okay. And then just a couple other things that I was trying to fill the budget with. One of them was going to be for a summer camp for youth. That wasn't in there anywhere, was it?
Well, Mayor, members of the governing body, to answer that question, I guess that falls in line with unfreezing the community services admin because all the requests in regards to summer camps reflects primarily with the community services department.
Okay.
And the admin would be a great asset for the community services director to facilitate and have to be able to coordinate functions like this as summer programs and all that, because right now the recreation or Parks and Rec have their youth 124 fund of 117,000 to be able to create and do this. So that's where that file falls in line.
Okay, well, I'm going to make a recommendation, ladies and gentlemen of the council, that we perhaps have another work session, and we can maybe have that on Monday, so that we can perhaps talk a little bit more before our city council meeting on Tuesday.
Can I make a recommendation?
Yes, Councilor Peggy Sue
Could I
Martinez.
ask that the staff be here, people that run
Yes.
departments? It's so hard to be dealing with this situation and not be able to have answers to questions. So if we could.
That's
please
part
get
of
staff
the
here for that.
recommendation that I thought. So we'll have a little bit clearer of an idea about what direction we wish to take.
Awesome.
And we'll have all of the directors available. If we have to have it for a couple days, we still have time, and we'll do what we have to do to make sure that we're where we're at.
So
Counselor,
June 1 is the day that it's. I'm
that it's
sorry,
technically due. Yes, I believe so.
June 1st. So if something happened where we
We could
couldn't
still do it.
do it on Tuesday, we
Mhm.
could advertise for Friday or
That's
something.
exactly my thought. So if, this takes as long as it takes, that's great. And we could advertise for a Friday meeting and then go from there.
Okay.
Just a point of, a point that I wanted to make is this is a very cumbersome exercise because we have to load it in two systems. One into the local government budget management system, LGBMS, which goes over to DFA, as well as entering it into our local accounting system. But there's also that crosswalk. So it's a very tedious process. And so we would just ask that we're given ample time to make sure that all of this is submitted correctly, entered correctly, because it does take time to enter into different databases. So, if we're wanting to meet the June 1st deadline, my preference would be, May the 28th. If we don't come to resolution by then, my recommendation would be to submit our FY21 budget as a holding spot until we can, come to a consensus on the FY22. It's just a thought.
Well, we're going to do what I think we need to do, and we'll jump that hurdle when we get there, if that's the only way to make sure that it happens. Okay, so I think unless any other counselors have any other questions or comments.
Just thank you
Very
and the
good.
staff for doing what they do. And like I said, I just wish I had the document sooner, but we pick it apart and we see where our priorities are with that money, especially that savings there.
All right, very good. We've
Thank
reached the
you.
end of our agenda. This meeting is now adjourned. It is